In America, we love a good success story, but my family preferred a good ghostwriter. I was the guy who wrote the checks so everyone else could sign their names to the dream. My phone is a graveyard of family notifications. At 32, I'm the eldest of the Pierce siblings, a title that carries the weight of a heavy winter coat you can never take off. My sister, Sarah, is 26 and perpetually finding her light. In our house, she's the creative soul, a title that apparently exempts you from understanding how a checking account works. Me, I'm the reliable one, but after 3 decades, I've realized reliable is just a polite Midwestern euphemism for the guy who covers the tab when the waiter starts hovering. I remember our last dinner at that overpriced steakhouse in River North. The atmosphere was suffocating, thick with the smell of charred ribeye and unset expectations. Sarah was busy live streaming her appetizers, talking to her community about manifesting abundance, while I sat there calculating the tip in my head. My parents leaned in, their eyes bypassing me entirely to bask in Sarah's glow. In that family dynamic, my silence was always weaponized. Because I didn't complain, they assumed I agreed. Because I didn't ask for help, they assumed I was a bottomless well of it. I sat there like a ghost at my own table, visible enough to hand over a credit card, but transparent enough that nobody saw the burnout etched into my face. They didn't realize that every time I nodded, I was actually just leaning closer to the exit. In the corporate world, we call it scope creep in my family. It was a slow-motion heist. It's never one big hit that breaks you. It's the death by 1,000 cuts that bleeds your savings dry while you're busy being the good guy. I call it the invisible ledger, a digital trail of entitlement that I've been tracking in a hidden folder on my laptop like a forensic accountant. It started with the small stuff, the kind of things that make you feel petty if you bring them up. A family Netflix plan in 2018. A shared Spotify premium. Then, the stakes got higher. Bill, can you just put Sarah's car insurance on your card this month? She's between gigs and her policy is about to lapse, my MOM had whispered 3 years ago. That month turned into 36. Then came the temporary fix for my parents' utility bills in the suburbs. The water, the heat, the electricity, all routed through my Amex because the autopay was already set up and it's just easier this way. Honey, by 32, I realized I was subsidizing a life I wasn't even invited to live. I was paying for Sarah's high-speed internet so she could upload videos about living authentically, while I sat in my apartment eating takeout over a sink because I was too drained to cook. Every time a notification popped up on my phone, transaction at Shell, payment to Geico, it wasn't just money leaving my account. It was a piece of my freedom. I wasn't just their son or brother anymore. I was a private equity firm they never planned on paying back. The ledger didn't lie. I was the most expensive thing they owned. The explosion didn't happen with a shout. It happened with the soft, clinical slide of a white leather binder across a mahogany dinner table. It was a Sunday evening, the air heavy with the scent of my mother's peace offering, pot roast. But as the binder stopped right in front of my wine glass, I knew the meal wasn't free. It never was. Sarah has a vision, Bill, my mother said, a voice dropping into that melodic, manipulative register she used for family emergencies. I opened the binder. It was a business plan for Aura and Ash, a holistic wellness boutique Sarah wanted to plant right in the high-rent heart of downtown Seattle. Crystals, $90 candles, and spirit alignment sessions, the price tag for this dream. A $200,000 small business administration loan. And there, highlighted in neon yellow, was the requirement for a third-party guarantor with a prime credit score and stable assets. She just needs your signature, my father added, not looking up from his steak. It's a formality, Bill. You've got the career, the 401k. It's just family helping family. I looked at Sarah, sat there, twirling a strand of hair, looking at me with a mix of bored entitlement and practiced vulnerability. To them, my signature wasn't a risk. It was a resource they felt they owned. If Sarah's spirit alignment went south, and let's be real, her track record for finishing anything was zero, the bank wouldn't come for her crystals. They'd come for my life. They'd come for the condo I'd saved for, the retirement I was building, the very skin of my back. I closed the binder. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the quiet room. No, I said. The air left the room. My mother's face shifted from a smile to a mask of pure betrayal. In that moment, I realized my refusal wasn't just about the $200,000. It was a declaration of independence. I was finally resigning from the role of the family safety net. And for the first time in 32 years, the reliable one had become the enemy. If the Sunday dinner was the declaration of war, Tuesday morning was the first strike. I was at my desk by 8:12 am, staring at a logistics heat map of the North Atlantic, trying to forget the look on my mother's face. Then, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah. No, good morning. No, sorry for the tension at dinner. Just a digital grenade dropped into my inbox. I'm quitting the gallery today. I can't breathe in that toxic environment anymore. I've decided I need a reset year to focus on my craft and find my light. You'll handle the overhead while I transition, right? Let me know when the transfer clears. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. You'll handle the overhead. No question mark. No request for a loan. It was a directive. In her mind, my 60-hour work weeks, my spreadsheets, and my stress was simply the utility company that powered her lifestyle. My labor was the fuel for her light. The sheer, localized audacity of it was breathtaking. She wasn't just asking for rent money. She was asking for my life force. She wanted me to work a job I tolerated, so she could enjoy a life she hadn't earned. She saw my bank account as a communal well and herself as the only one allowed to drink from it. I looked at my reflection in the dark screen of my monitor, a 32-year-old man who had become a ghost in his own success. For years, I had been the silent engine under the hood of her creative journey, but this text changed the chemistry of my blood. I didn't feel anger. I felt a cold, crystalline clarity. The golden child had finally pushed her luck into the red, and for the first time, I wasn't going to balance the books while my family was busy measuring the drapes for a lifestyle they expected me to fund. I was carving out an exit strategy they never saw coming. It's funny how people stop looking at you once they think they've figured out exactly what you're worth. To them, I was a fixed asset. To the firm I worked for, I was a high-value operative. 3 weeks prior, a discreet opportunity had landed in my inbox, a senior operations role in our London office. It wasn't just a promotion. It was a ghost protocol, a 3-year contract, a housing allowance in a quiet corner of South Kensington, a generous relocation package, and most importantly 4,000 miles of Atlantic Ocean between me and the Pierce family tax. I signed the contract on a Wednesday afternoon, sitting in a coffee shop 3 blocks away from my office, where no one would recognize me. As my digital signature hit the document, I felt a rush of adrenaline I hadn't felt since I was 18. This was my clean slate. I didn't call my mother. I didn't warn Sarah. I played the part of the reliable Bill to perfection. I attended the group chats. I nodded when Dad talked about team efforts, but behind my eyes, I was already gone. I was visualizing my life fitting into 4 suitcases. I was imagining a world where my phone didn't buzz with a Venmo request every time a utility bill was due. I was becoming a shadow in my own life, waiting for the clock to run out. In logistics, timing is everything. You don't tell the competition your route. You just ensure the cargo disappears before they even realize the warehouse is empty. My family thought they were closing a trap on me with a $200,000 loan. They didn't realize they were trying to cage a man who had already found the key. The silence of my apartment was heavy, broken only by the hum of my laptop and the distant siren of a Chicago squad car. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the screen reflecting in my glasses, feeling like a ghost haunting my own bank account. This wasn't just accounting. It was an exorcism. I started with the low-hanging fruit. Amazon Prime, remove card. Netflix, change password. Spotify, cancel family plan. Then, I moved to the jugular. I logged into the Verizon portal. I saw Sarah's line, my parents' lines, all of them hovering on my data plan like parasites. I didn't hesitate. I split the account, porting my number out and leaving theirs to expire or be paid for by people who actually used them. Next came the Pierce family subsidy, the utilities for the house in the suburbs. I unlinked my Amex from the autopay for the gas, the water, and the electric. The hardest part was the mortgage portal. My name had been sitting there for years, a temporary CO borrower to keep my parents from defaulting during the 2008 Hanover. I filed the paperwork to remove myself, a process I'd quietly initiated months ago, but was only now finalizing with every click. I felt a physical weight lifting of my chest. Click. Sarah's car insurance, gone. Click. My mother's Apple Cloud storage, disconnected. It felt like untying thick, moldy ropes from a sinking ship. I watched the recurring payments list shrink until it was just me. Just Bill.by 2 o'clock am. The digital tether was severed. For the first time in a decade, My credit score belonged to me. My future wasn't collateral for someone else's bad decisions. I stared at the success confirmation on the screen and realized that to my family, this would look like an act of war. To me, it was just the sound of a cage door finally swinging open in a traditional American household. Thanksgiving is the sacred cow. It's the one day a year where you're supposed to bury the hatchet, ignore the dysfunction, and pass the gravy. My mother knew this. She'd been using the holiday as a bargaining chip since I was 10 years old. But this time, she wasn't just asking me to show up. She was holding my seat hostage. The email arrived on a Friday afternoon. The subject line was simply, "Thanksgiving at Aunt Martha's." I opened it, expecting the usual logistical headache about who was bringing the cranberry sauce. Instead, I found a cold-blooded ultimatum. My mother had written, "Bill, we've discussed this as a family. We cannot have someone at the table who doesn't believe in the family's future. Until you sign Sarah's loan papers for the Seattle project, consider yourself uninvited. We're doing this for your own good, so you understand what loyalty actually means." I sat there, staring at the screen, and waited for the familiar pang of guilt to hit. I waited for the urge to call her, to apologize, to negotiate my way back into their good graces. But the sting never came. For the first time in 32 years, I saw the math for what it was. My mother was literally putting a price tag on my presence. If my seat at the table cost $200,000 and the total destruction of my financial future, then the turkey wasn't worth it. I realized then that their love was a subscription service I could no longer afford. I didn't reply. I didn't plead. I just thought of Aunt Martha's cramped dining room in the suburbs, the forced laughter, and Sarah's smug face, and then I thought of the quiet, cold freedom of my own life. If the price of being family was being a victim, I was perfectly happy to eat alone. The ambush came on a rainy Tuesday, just 6 days before my flight. My phone lit up with a FaceTime request, a group call. I knew if I didn't answer, they'd hunt me down. So I swiped up. There they were, framed in the shaky glow of my parents' kitchen, a jury of people who hadn't paid for their own dinner in years. My mother held the phone, her face tight with performative grief. My father loomed behind her like a debt collector. And in the corner, Sarah was slumped next to Marcus, her latest visionary boyfriend who wore beanies in the house and had never held a job longer than a seasonal Coachella gig. "Bill," my father started, his voice booming in that man-of-the-house tone that used to make my stomach flip. "The bank called. They said you withdrew your name from the mortgage application. And Sarah says her phone is cut off. What the hell is going on?" "I'm out," I said. My voice was level, almost clinical. "I've unlinked the accounts. I'm not see you signing the loan." Then came the script. "You're so calculating, Bill," Sarah spat, leaning into the frame. "You've been planning this, haven't you? Sitting on your little pile of money while your own sister struggles to breathe?" "You're a sociopath. He's selfish," Marcus chimed in, nodding solemnly as if he had a right to an opinion. "It's not very family first of you, bro." I watched them for a moment, the anger, the desperate attempts to shame me back into the harness. And then it hit me, a realization so cold it was almost refreshing. They weren't screaming because they missed me. They weren't crying because the family was broken. They were panicking because the ATM had just developed a conscience. They didn't love Bill. They didn't even know Bill. They loved the access to my 780 credit score. They loved the reliable one who made their bad decisions invisible. "I am not your salary, and I am not your emergency fund," I told the screen. "You call me calculating because I finally started doing the math. And the math says I'm done." My mother started to cry, that sharp, high-pitched sob designed to make me fold. I didn't wait for the encore. I tapped the red button and watched the screen go black. The silence that followed was the most beautiful thing I'd heard in a decade. The O'Hare terminal was a blur of grey suits and frantic travelers, but I moved through it like a man walking through a dream. I had 4 suitcases, my entire life distilled into 200 pounds of checked luggage. No goodbye calls, no last-minute reconciliations, just a one-way ticket and a passport that felt heavier than usual. As I took my seat in 12A, my phone buzzed one last time. A final text from my father. "Don't bother coming back when you realize how alone you are." I didn't feel the sting I expected. Instead, I felt a strange clinical curiosity. I looked at the contact names. Mom, Dad, Sarah. People I had spent 32 years trying to appease. I selected each one and hit block, one by one. The tethers snapped. I wasn't just blocking numbers. I was decommissioning a version of myself that had been built for their convenience. I was killing reliable Bill so that I could finally meet myself. Then came the roar of the engines. As the plane accelerated down the tarmac, I felt the physical G-force pressing me into the seat. And then, that magical, gravity-defying moment of rotation, the lift-off. I watched the Chicago skyline shrink into a grid of flickering lights. Down there, somewhere in the suburbs, they were probably still sitting in that kitchen, blaming me for the cold house and the unpaid bills. But from 7 miles up, their drama looked microscopic. The suffocating Chicago humidity was replaced by the pressurized, cool air of the cabin. I leaned my head against the window and felt a literal, physical sensation of weight leaving my chest. For the first time in my adult life, no one knew where I was, and more importantly, no one could ask me for a cent. I wasn't an insurance policy anymore. I was just a passenger on a plane, heading toward a city where no one knew my name or my credit score. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I didn't dream of spreadsheets. I just slept. It's raining in London tonight, a soft, persistent drizzle that blurs the streetlights of South Kensington into glowing amber smears. I am sitting in my new flat, the air smelling of fresh paint and Earl Grey tea. The silence here is different than it was in Chicago. In Chicago, silence was a ticking clock, a countdown to the next crisis I'd have to fix. Here, the silence is mine. I own every decibel of it. My credit is frozen. My accounts are locked behind layers of security they'll never penetrate. My phone sits on the marble countertop, dark and indifferent. For the first time in 32 years, the money in my bank account isn't a family fund waiting to be redistributed. It's the fruit of my labor, and it's staying exactly where it belongs. I used to think closure was this big, cinematic moment, a final speech where I'd make them understand the hurt they'd caused. I thought I needed them to say, "You're right, Bill, we used you." But as I look out at the London skyline, I realize that closure isn't a conversation. You can't negotiate with people who only see you as a resource. Closure is just a boundary that you finally stop explaining. It's the moment you realize that no is a complete sentence, and you don't owe anyone a footnote to justify it. They'll call me a villain. They'll tell stories about the son who abandoned them, the brother who hoarded his wealth, and for the first time in my life, I'm okay with that. If being the villain in their story is the price of being the hero in mine, it's the best investment I've ever made. I'm not reliable Bill anymore. I'm just Bill. And as I finish my tea and turn out the lights, I realize I've finally learned the most important lesson in logistics. The most valuable cargo you'll ever move is yourself. I'm home. And for once, I'm the only one with the key. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments.